here we are in Final Cut Pro. Today I'm editing just a super simple video. I'm going to take you along for the ride and show you all of the little tips and tricks that I use to make my editing workflow just that little bit easier. So the first thing I do when starting a project is actually creating a new library. And I know some people work out of the same library for multiple projects. So this video is about gimbal shot comparison. So I actually store, this is kind of the first thing, all of my libraries on the SSD until it gets full on my computer, and then I move it off onto my external hard drive. So I'm going to save it to the movies folder. So the next couple of things are super easy to do. All you have to do is use the keyboard. So you can hit Command-I to import footage. So I'm going to need this gimbal folder, hit Enter to import, and I leave the files in place on my hard drive because I do not have much storage available on my computer. Then what I usually do is go up here to expand the different categories of footage here so everything's looking good. Then hit Command-N to create a project, and I just name it the same thing as my library because I have a project for each library. And then if I do need another project, I just make another one with a different name. These are the settings I use. I shoot in 1080p 30 FPS, so that's what I edit in as well and subsequently export in. The next thing that I have is a separate library, you may have seen this, for all of my video assets. So instead of importing music and channel graphics every single time into whatever library I'm currently working on, I just have one library and then I copy the music and graphics and whatever over as I use them instead of importing them all. So I have all my sound effect packs in here. Then I also have some lit sound effects, you know, like the weird ones from memes. Then I also have transitions and also importantly I have my channel graphics. So this is my end screen, all of the assets that are used in my intro and the intro itself. So if I drop this in and turn off the volume, you can see this is a great way to start. And then as I use them, they just get copied into the library that I am using for the rest of my footage. So during the rough cut of the video, I find the tools that I use most often in Final Cut Pro are the Select tool and the Blade tool. So it's really useful to know the tools that you use most often and the shortcuts to get to them. So for me, if I'm using the Blade tool the most often, I can just hit B on my keyboard and boom, I can, chop up my clips as I need to. And then I can also just hit A to get back to the regular Select tool. Now, something to note about the Blade tool, if you do end up using it quite often, is took me a while to notice this, but if you want to cut out the beginning part of a clip, say this wasn't what you wanted, instead of going hit B, then cutting it, then going back to A, then selecting, then deleting, it's actually easier if you stay in the Select tool and just trim it back by dragging and holding the end of the clip. Another thing you may have noticed on my screen and in my timeline is the audio meters over here. I use these all the time, and it's super important to have them open so you can mix audio to the appropriate level for the export. Now these can be shown and hidden, so you may not see it on your timeline, but if you go down to Window and Show in Workspace, this is one of the options, audio meters. You can also toggle them by Shift Command 8, not an easy to command to remember, and by default they will likely be like something like this, really thick boys with 3 C's. Now they can be really thick, but this tells the same information as this. You can still see the levels, and that way you still have most of your timeline available for you to edit in. Speaking of audio, there is no vocal audio in this video that I'm editing right here, but if there was, what I would always do is I would go over to the Effects tab and grab the compressor. So this is an all-around really solid effect to add. You can just choose one of the presets that you like for vocals or instrumentals, and it really levels out the audio, gets rid of some of the fuss that you don't want. And it's just a really simple and easy way to increase your audio production quality in Final Cut Pro. I do have a full video on audio editing within Final Cut Pro, so definitely check that out at the link in the description. So right now, the rough cut of the video is done. I just added some titles, cut everything down, nothing really interesting to report. Now for this video is under a minute. It's just about gimbal shots and results, handheld versus on a gimbal. So for this video, I didn't really use it, but for most of my other videos, considering I do a lot of takes for a lot of them, is I will speed up the playback in Final Cut Pro in order to edit faster and just cut down all of the nonsense out of A-roll or B-roll clips. So when you hit spacebar to play within Final Cut Pro, you can hit L to speed up the playback. So now it's 2 times, now it's 3 times. I usually go as only high as 2 times, and then once you pause it, it resets back to the default playing speed. Subsequently, you can also use J to go into reverse and speed it up that way as well. This I use all of the time because it's so much faster, and I can tend to understand myself even at 2 times speed. At the end of all of my videos, I also include my end screen graphic. Now, I usually put this on for about 10 seconds, and you can actually see how long something is when you extend it. So you see there, it says 6 seconds and 29 frames, 7 seconds and 16, etc. So I drag it out to just about 10 seconds, doesn't have to be exact. And then I will kind of pick a spot in the music where it makes sense to fade out. Speaking of fades, hitting Command T on your keyboard, super easy to just get a basic crossfade going. I use this to transition at the end screen in pretty much all of my videos. And then if you do have any other elements, you also want to fade those out too. Pretty self-explanatory. And more fades, because why not? You can also fade out the music just by grabbing the little fade tool and dragging it in depending on how long you want the fade to be. And then once I'm done editing the project, it's usually my next course of action to export it. So what I'll do is I'll make sure the project is selected over here in the viewer, and then I will send it over to Compressor in a new batch. Now, not everyone has Compressor, so, this won't apply to everyone who's using Final Cut Pro, but I love Compressor because of its versatility, ease of use, and of course, optimization for the Mac. Just updated it for macOS Big Sur anyways. So what I'll do is I'll add an export here, and I use one of my presets. So for all of YouTube, I export in 30 FPS. So, that's pretty straightforward. And then I will actually put it in the same folder as all of the footage I imported to the final library that I was using. So I'll have to find it, but you get the idea, right? So if I just pop in here, bing, bang, boom, done. Choose and then hit OK. So once that export setting is added, I would start the batch, export it, and then go into the rest of my process, uploading thumbnails, etc. Not going to do that just yet because OBS is recording right now and my computer might die a heat death if I start compressing something in Compressor. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you picked up on a couple of subtle tips, maybe something that'll make your life a little bit easier in Final Cut Pro. That was the intention of this video, so hopefully you got a couple of things like that out of it. Anyway, I am doing this every single week, so make sure to subscribe for weekly tech videos, and you can also follow me on Twitter at KyleGNew.